Okay, good morning, everybody. How's my sound? It looks like there's a lot going on here. Hold on. Um, okay, I hope that sounds better. I don't know that I have everything set up exactly correctly, but good morning. It's Thursday morning, and it seems like it's a beautiful day. I got the windows open, which is always really nice in the studio. And yeah, I am in a weird place where it's like I have so many projects started and I'm working on a lot of different things, and there were a lot of directions I could go in the streaming today. I did one painting yesterday and I gave it away, so I have to show a picture of it. Let me see. I did take a photo. So this was a fun thing that I did because I've done a lot of portraits with watercolor. And yesterday I did one, it's a little 8 by 10 painting of Freddie Mercury, which I've not done a portrait in acrylic before. So that was really fun to do and a good little challenge. I was really happy with how it turned out. Um, yeah, and that's where that guy is. Yeah, trying to think of what else. The painting that I worked on last time, my hand lettering. Um, I can show you where that is right now. It's on my camera. Hold on. There we go. There it is. I completely painted out what I'd started before, and I've redone the text. And I'm going to just come out and say that if I want to do actual hand lettering, would have to put a lot more time and effort into, mastering a thing. So I'm not very worried about it. I'm not going to, this is not hand lettered. I laid out some text on the computer and then I did a transfer, and I'm going to work off of that because I just don't have the skills to do it well. And it's not honestly something that I'm super concerned about incorporating into my work a lot at this point. So I will have to get a lot better at it and do more practice and learning to do it if I decided that that's something I want to pursue. But for now, I thought about continuing and just painting in on this today, but that seems rather dull and boring. It's sort of just, you know, coloring in lines. So I've decided instead I'll put this to the side and I'm going to work on another small and colorful watercolor. So I'm going to have to do a little change over here. It's very, very dangerous for me to have my little plant guy over by my paintings. I like him here because I like to see them. Yesterday, I dumped it over. The poor thing, the poor little succulent fell out onto the floor. The dirt went everywhere, and I made a giant mess. So, put him somewhere much more safe, further away from me for the moment, and hopefully that will help. If my audio levels are low, please let me know. I think they are okay, but every now and again it looks like they drop a little. Okay, we got this guy. And I'm just gonna move everything off of here. Since this little guy is taped down to my board, I'm actually using this is a cutting mat. So you can see on the back side, that's what I've been using just to kind of be a protector for the table. So we're just gonna move this all together out of the way. And I'd still like to tape down my paper. And I don't think this is a project that's gonna take me very long, so I'm just gonna go with a piece of cardboard. Kind of a sturdier piece of board. I don't think it will hold up well, but I think it will get us through today. I don't need my portfolio, or not portfolio, palette. I don't need that palette. I need this one. So I feel like I could turn, see on, hold on, I'm gonna brighten this up a second. I think, somewhere or another. Brighter, nope, darker. Okay, hopefully that will look a little better. And I can actually zoom in a little bit as well. Why not? Because this is a smallish piece of paper. This is like a, I don't know, 5 by 10 or something like that. Got my watercolor brushes, I got my water. And that's everything I need to get started. Mary Beth, good morning, hello. How are you today? Have you been out in your garden yet? It's gonna get a little warm. I find it to be a hair humid, but all in all, not so bad. But I got the coffee and the backup coffee to refill as I need it. Oh, and my giant water. I kind of keep this is nice to keep in the studio. I think it's 64 ounces. So if I just keep that in here and make sure I'm working at it all day, I'll know I'm doing a pretty decent job of staying hydrated. So, not bad garden is thriving, as are the weeds. Oh, my one attempt at having a garden, the weeds did me in. I lost that battle so badly. Yeah, I know that I would have to do things very differently if I decided to have a garden again. It would need to be a whole lot smaller than what I attempted. Well, I would need a yard too. You know, minor details. But it's wonderful. The fresh grown things or flowers or whatever it is. You can't really beat it. So I'm drawing very lightly right now. So might not show up great on camera. But I'm going to do a reoccurring motif, I guess, in a lot of my work is an anatomical heart. And I want to do another one in very colorful watercolor. And that's going to be incorporated into a larger painting I'm working on ultimately. So I'm starting out with a pretty light line drawing, which probably doesn't translate really well on camera, but reasons for that being, one, if I make a mistake, it's not a big deal to erase it when it's real light, and also, you know, you don't necessarily want to see really strong pencil marks under the watercolor. You're learning to live with weeds. Well, not feeling guilty about having them, accepting their presence. Yeah, I think that's another part of there's so much, another area in our lives where there's that pressure to have the perfect garden. Weeds are tough to beat. They're part of nature, and we're the ones that are trying to fight nature to get rid of them. So, yeah, what the heck. I think it's fine to let some of it be, as long as they're not choking out your plants that you're growing, right? And half the time that's more of a battle with squirrels and chipmunks to keep them from stealing the goodies. I still kind of can't get over how when I used to grow hot peppers, I haven't for a few years, on our patio here, how squirrels would come up here and steal them, and they weren't, and I don't just mean like jalapenos, I had habaneros and ghost chilies and Thai chilies, and they were like just eating them like crazy. Once I realized that was happening, it's like, okay, time to harvest, but They ate quite a few of them. They must have been a little on fire, I would think. Who knows? Poor little guys. But he was hungry enough to not care, I guess. All right. That's good enough. It's not the most accurate anatomical drawing ever, but it's just, the visual, the idea. So we'll get some color on there so you can see that there's anything on my paper at all. And we'll just get some washes to start with. All right. Oh, sorry. That's always a danger of trying to keep my mic close to me is hitting the mic with my brush. I'm not the most graceful person in the world. Goes without saying, I imagine. If anyone is around me for more than for just a few minutes at a time. I drop a lot of things, I break a lot of things, I walk into a lot of things. They have come accustomed, evolved. Everyone's using hot peppers to keep them away from bird feeders. And oh, okay. Didn't even occur to me that's a thing that's pretty common now. I just was growing hot peppers to make hot sauce. So I loved making fermented hot sauce, and those really hot chilies work great for it. I mean, it's got serious kick, but it also gets incredible flavor because it's fermented. And the heat does chill out a little bit after the fermentation process, but it's still pretty serious. But yeah, that's pretty good stuff. And I'm not too worried about my background on this, because I think ultimately I'm going to cut it out, but we'll do a little bit of a wash. I am not one of the heat in my spices. Yeah, I didn't used to be. Well, my partner is grew up in a family, Pakistani, so lots of serranos and almost everything, serrano peppers, lots of heat. So it's kind of his fault that I enjoy spicy food now, but I didn't growing up, certainly. Never really was exposed to it at all. And it's still, one of those things where kind of time and place. I don't like it with everything in all occasions. Okay. Just added a little bit of water to my pans to make them faster to pull out and work with. So I got this book that I've been kind of pecking away at very slowly. How to Be an Artist by Jerry Saltz. It's like a very highly recommended book in a lot of lists for creatives, and I don't think it just applies to artists, the information that they give in here. And I thought it would be kind of funny, or not funny, that's not the right word, fun, to sort of go through some of the points that they make. Because what it is, just like individual lessons, I guess. So every couple pages is another number of something, and it's different sections of steps with just little mini lessons in it. So the first section of the book is that, if you're a complete amateur, things to think about before you even get started. And I really like number 1, and it's don't be embarrassed. And I think even if you're not an amateur at something you're doing, that can certainly apply. It's can be very easy to not think yourself good enough and to kind of hide what you're working on away and or be embarrassed to even try stuff because you don't think you'll be good at it. Like there's that perfectionist element. So I enjoy that as his first recommendation for how to get started if you're an amateur. Yeah, where did I put it? Yeah. See, dropping things again. That's me. So, yeah. Don't worry about whether your art makes sense. The faster your work makes sense, the faster people will lose interest. Let go of being good. Start thinking about creating. Yeah, that's something that I talk about a lot with kids. There are always, yeah, absolutely. Even the most successful people, there's that self-doubt. There's imposter syndrome, for sure. Yeah, I mean, if you're afraid to even start or to work at something, how will you ever get good at it, you know? I taught at the school, which I'm actually almost done with teaching at. So it comes up a lot that kids don't want to try something that's hard or difficult or whatever it is, and it's encouraging them to not be afraid to fail, to not be afraid to try things, whether it's going to turn out great or not. That seems to be a major issue for them, that they have to know that what they're going to do is going to turn out great, and if they start it and it doesn't look great, they immediately want to give up. So that's always a frustrating thing that I have to try to work around with them on. It's how are you going to get good at doing something if you're not even willing to just try it and then keep doing it? So same lesson applies for everybody. And because I don't know if that's a generational thing that I see with all the kids now. They're like, 10, 11 years old. Or if it's just, I'm only seeing it because I'm in that particular kind of circumstance with them, of being, of teaching them something. I imagine it happens. I imagine there's a lot of people that just inherently feel that way. That don't want to try something if they're not going to be good at it, afraid to start. And, makes me sad. We only have one life. You might as well try to do the things that you want to try. And who cares what anyone thinks? Which is easier said than done, and I fully acknowledge that. Even that takes practice. Like trying to let go of what people will say or think or comment on or judge. You think you get pretty good at it, and then something will happen along the route that kind of knocks you off your path there and surprises you. But that's life, that's anything. There's always somebody with an opinion. I just will always remember, this doesn't even directly relate. When I was in high school and I was looking at colleges, and there was I would imagine maybe they still do this. The Art Institute of Chicago had a portfolio day for high school kids, and there were art schools from all over the place with somebody there to review portfolios. And I was standing in line for some school, I don't remember exactly which, and I could see the boy in front of me his work was being reviewed. And I was, very close. I could see his work. I was trying not to eavesdrop or anything, but just was sort of curious. Every single piece he had in his portfolio was somehow he'd incorporated a self portrait into it. It was always him as the subject. And I remember finding that really interesting. And yeah, it came across at the time as very, very egotistical. And I still wonder now, I wonder if I would still see it that way. I wonder whatever happened to him. Like, did he get into that school? Is he making art? Is he still doing self portraits? Can't help but be curious. People are so strange. I've never been a fan of doing self portraits. I have done oh, one or a couple, I guess, and it always feels weird. Weird to me. I don't know. I have also just simply used myself as a reference for things where it's not meant to be a direct self self portrait, but just the only model I had around at the time to use. So work with what you got sometimes. Oh, I need a little rag cloth. I always forget something. Yeah, next week will be my last week teaching the kids, and I definitely have, mixed feelings about it. I will be relieved to reclaim the time, but I'm gonna miss the kids a lot. I definitely will. Okay. Just like freeze for a moment while I'm trying to decide what to do in random poses. That's just my brain working. Everything else just stops moving. I can't think and move at the same time. Quite a conundrum. I'm kind of I'm working a lot of wet on wet with this guy. And this is a lot of just playing with this piece. Um, Letting colors bleed and pool in different spots to create different looks. I had the first piece of art that I ever did with a heart in it, like an anatomical style heart, was a very simple animation. Um, it was digital, and it had a girl. It wasn't very good. We'll say. I don't think I like looking back on it, but it was a girl that was kind of reminiscent of like Little Red Riding Hood. I guess she had a red um, hoodie kind of cape thing on. Um, and you don't see her face. She's a little bit in silhouette, and she's reaching out, and it's like her heart is flying off away. And it was called Sometimes Things Get Away. And I remember being at one of the comic book conventions in the Artist Alley many years ago, and I think it was that piece out, and this guy walked past that was a wrestler, like a professional wrestler, the TV stuff. And I don't know anything about that except that I'd remembered I'd had a friend that asked, he couldn't be there, and the day that that guy was in the celebrity area and asked for us to get a autograph of this guy for him. So that's the only reason I knew who this dude was when he walked past. But he was a guy that would like do his makeup like the Crow and stuff. And I happened to walk past my table at Artist Alley on the way to, I believe the bathroom was at the end of the row. And he kind of stopped and looked for a second over my table, and then he looked at me and he said, "You're creepy." And then he kept walking. And one of my favorite moments in life right there. Oh my gosh. Yes, one of my most favorite moments in life, being told that I was creepy by a guy who professionally goes out and puts his makeup like the Crow. That was fun. Random encounters. I don't remember what his name or anything was, because it's just not my thing, the wrestling, but it was fun and silly. I guess it's all just in the eye of the viewer. But not particularly one to shy away from creepy things. I enjoy creepy things. Mostly. I mean, I guess it depends on the type of creep. I don't mean like not creepy people doing terrible things, but like creepy aesthetics, maybe. That sort of stuff. Can be fun. Now, of course, I talk about my love of horror movies, so, there you go. There's always that. So it's kind of starting to look like something, maybe a little bit. I'm really not going for realism. I mean, you're definitely about to see that. I just wanted something kind of colorful and a little busy. So I'll probably work up a lot of layers of texture on him, this one, over time. Yeah, we did the Don't Be Embarrassed was lesson number 1. Lesson number 2 is that imagination is more important than knowledge. And that creativity is what you do with your imagination. So yeah, they're just really short, little like paragraph and a half here. So, oh, I like this descriptor that gorgeous nonsense, making unreal things real and real things unreal. Pledge allegiance to it, live up to it, honor and listen to it, take pleasure in it, let it be your magic lantern and flying carpet. I like that. Your imagination is inseparable from you and will be with you on the day you die. It is not a state, it is the human existence itself. So use it. Come up with things and then put them to work. I like that. And I think I find that using your imagination is a bit like exercising a muscle. Like, the more that we do it, the easier it is. the better we do at it, the more naturally it starts to happen. Because, when we're children, it's as easy as anything. We don't even think about it. But it becomes less useful to us the older we get, generally. So then we have to exercise it when we want to utilize it again a little bit. So yeah, I like that. Creating a practice of using our imaginations. I believe one of the early points in that book also, it might be one of the next ones. Let me look. No, not the next one. It's in there somewhere. Where it talks about like the habit of creating, and there's a recommendation about book here that talks about this too. That's pretty good. Almost forgot about it. The idea of like planning how you start your day. Like this is one that I read a little bit ago. It was a pretty quick read. Manage your day to day, build your routine, find your focus, and sharpen your creative mind. Unfortunately, with my very ADHD brain, I read about it and mostly forgot about it. So I might actually have to revisit that because it is a quick read. But it's like a lot of sections of different people talking about the things that they do, the practices and habits they create to be more productive and creative or whatever it is in their work, to function at their best. And one of the things I would like to get back to is kind of like starting the day in the studio with a specific, like an exercise. Like come into the studio and I don't know, I guess it could change from time to time. Like maybe I did for a while when I first left my day job to work at home. I would pull up on my iPad some figure drawing things, and I would just sit in my sketchbook and do some figure drawing for maybe a half an hour or something like that. Yeah, work on one concept at a time. Yeah, like you could do something like that for a long time, and then maybe I would switch to just doing hands for a little while, and then maybe some still life sketches, or maybe I'd work on some color exercises. Draw a gesture, yeah. Doing the gesture drawings is I need to get back to doing that. I just feel like it would be such a good way to start the creative day. It like creates the intention of doing the work. So coming into the studio and just straight away put on the lights, the fan, open the window, maybe have my coffee with me, and just have the sketchbook there ready to go and do those things. Yes, self-portraits, right? Oh, I think I'd be traumatized. Yeah, something. I kind of did that 2020 in the beginning of the year. What started out as this kind of online challenge from who was it? Cross Stitch something. Oh man, my brain. This really great artist that does cross stitch, and she does release some patterns, but she has her work shown all over the country, and it's little like kind of politically like statements, and she kind of hosted this project when everything was shut down about 2021, I guess. Then make, don't break. So instead of being very overwhelmed with all the awful things happening, to instead focus that energy into making something every day. And when I started that project, I started with randomly doing some real quick portrait couple portraits, and then I'm like, oh, this is interesting, and I kept going, and then I that turned into my own inspiration project. Like the challenge, the online challenge was like a 30-day thing, and then I kept going. I made it 100 days, 100 portraits, and I got pretty good at portraits by the end of it. So anything like that, yeah, that kind of that might have been a little more intense than it would need to be. I'm thinking now more like exercises to just, sharpen skills and get your mindset ready. I mean, heck, I make my kids do it in the classes. I set up a still life that I have them do first thing when they walk in the door. So, yeah, something like that. Getting into a habit. I find starting on the new year too much pressure. I reset on my birthday. That's when I reset what I need to. Much less pressure. Yeah, I never put a lot of importance into dates. Too much. It's really more like when I did start that one, it was just I didn't have anything else that I was doing, and I liked the idea because I'd been stressed out with everything going on, and just like in the world outside of the pandemic. Like January that year started with the whole insurrection thing, and there was just all this like uncertainty and what the heck is going on in the world. And it was like an attempt to feel better about things. Like I used that project to paint inspirational and interesting people that were doing good things, and it was almost as much for my mindset as it was for a creative practice. Because every day I would have to sit and look at and learn about somebody who was an amazing person doing cool things, activists, historical people, glass ceiling breakers, and once you got through all the kind of easy ones that you could, if I had to come up with a list off the top of my head, I could come up with quite a few people, like activists and civil rights activists, all kinds of people. But then eventually it becomes like I had to start looking up people to paint, because I had, and it forced me to learn about all these people that I didn't actually know much about. And that was great. And it really did, it was sort of like an opportunity to give myself some hope for humanity, quite honestly. So that was a lot of why that happened when it did. Much less to do with specifically it being like a New Year's resolution or anything. Terrible at resolutions, because I'll make them and then forget about them a week later. Because that's how my brain works. But yeah, that ended up being a really good thing for me to do. And bonus, I worked on a creative skill along the way. So yeah, I'd like to get back to that. And I kind of started off the stream talking about how um, after my last stream, I've really, accepting the fact that I'm not going to be great at hand lettering unless I really put in the effort to be good and learn how to do it. And I'm not sure that that's the thing I want to do right now, so I just was going to like letting go of that expectation on myself. But there are a lot of things that I do want to work at and would like to be better at. So yeah, kind of be a great idea, great opportunity to try that. Oh, also, well, Mary Beth, I know that you're in the Chicagoland area and are in the city from time to time, and anyone else that might be that might watch this, if are ever in this area, a friend of mine just sent me this place. Where is it? Let me see. that opened in Wicker Park, and it's called Pop Craft. And I'm so excited. Like, she sent me the link to this place, and I'm like, we need to do this right now. It is a craft studio where you book time where you can do um, tufting, like do a little rug design. You can hand make your own lipstick is another project you can do. There's a mosaic DIY, and then there's cream glue project, um, where it's like you can use a phone case or different things and do this sort of work. And I'm like, when are you free? We're booking right now. So you like book the time, and the tufting is the priciest thing because, you know, you're working large and it's a lot of material and it's a few hours, but it's really not expensive, and this stuff is really cool. Like, I wouldn't be doing it wouldn't be my interest to do like the cartoon characters type stuff, but you can bring your own workshop ideas. Here, I mean, look at these things. I think it's so cool. And I've like the whole tufting artwork is one of those things that's been on my like, what do you call it? My rabbit, one of my rabbit lists, rabbit holes ideas of things I'd love to learn, and all that gluing stuff. I'm so excited about this place. It is the website is popcrafting.com, and I've she'd actually forwarded me, if I can find it here. It was a link to their Instagram, which I don't see the link to that on their website, but they had really cool, really cool stuff where they were actually showing some video of people doing the things. So yeah, popcrafting.com. I want to see this place succeed because I want to go there a few times. And I love the idea. I think that is so cool. Because then I can try the things that I want to try without investing the hundreds of dollars into equipment that I may or may not ever use again. Because that's the kind of rabbit hole person I am. Yeah, I think that's just, I love it. I love things like that. It's always in my mind that I think it would be so cool to like have a creative space. And I know that I think that I've mentioned before talking about how I'd like to see more suburban art studio spaces, because that really doesn't exist much in the suburbs. It's much more of a in the city thing. But even spaces like that where people can go and do and try things or show things or just, oh, it makes me so excited. I love it. It's inspiring. It gives me ideas. Not that I have the money to, like, you know, rent a space or make anything happen. But one day, you never know. And that inspired, like, excited feeling you get when you see somebody doing something cool and it, like, gets your wheels turning. I love that. There was one place that Andy and I, my friend who sent me that, had stumbled upon the last time we were in the city. And where were we? What neighborhood were we by? Oh my gosh. Some days my brain just isn't gonna cooperate. But it was, oh, I do have a thing that tells me an address, because I'd showed something I bought from there. It was, no address. Never mind. Okay, anyway. It was a shop that made like leather things. They had shoes, and they made these fanciful clips that you could put onto bags or your shoes or whatever. They made these insane earrings and keychains, and they were all super colorful and metallic. But they also did some ceramic things there, and they were using 3D printers to create these really cool ceramic like vases and cups, and they were the coolest thing. And you could take the class there to learn how to do that. And I think they were also teaching some of the leatherwork stuff too. So they were selling their wares that they made, but also had a space in their shop where they were just teaching it too. And the leather goods were actually a little less interesting to me than the ceramic stuff, which was so cool. But that's simply like stylistically, it wasn't a style that I liked to wear, and I do try to avoid. If I don't need to, I try not to buy animal products. I'm not vegan, but I do try to be, responsible about my use of things and thoughtful about it as best as I can. So we are getting to have some color here. It's a pretty good start. But I'm envisioning this getting pretty textured and maybe a little wild by the time it's done. We'll see how that goes. My intention with this is that I will incorporate it into a bigger piece of artwork when it's done, but if that's assuming that I'm happy with it. What was the name of that one, the ceramic place? You know what, I would need a moment to try to see if I can look it up. I know that they are a group that I have seen at the Renegade Craft Fair. So maybe if I try searching Renegade Craft Fair leather shoes. Let me try this. I know there wasn't just one, but let's see. Sun and lace, no. Nope. Okay, maybe I need to always trying to figure out the whole searching thing, because it's like such a random thing that I'm trying to put together, and I can't even remember the name of the street. We walked down the street through a couple different neighborhoods, and gosh, I can't remember anything. Renegade Craft Fair leather shoes, Chicago. Let's try that. Let's try. Okay. Halstead, I'm not sure. I honestly am not sure. Oh, let me see. Okay, so I've gone to the Renegade Craft Show page. Do they have a section for accessories, apparel, art? Do they have shoes? Probably. 'Cause their big thing that they had there was a lot of shoes. Living, jewelry. I don't see. Am I missing something? How are there not shoes? Bags, wallets, enamel pins. Footwear. There we go. It's just the wrong word. All right. That's a lot of socks. That's not what I'm looking for. And I don't see it there. Okay, let me try 3D print ceramic class in Chicago. Right, I can't spell things. I know that. MakerBot. No, I don't think. Because it wasn't a slip rabbit, no. Oh, goodness. It's the worst, trying to remember these things. But it was super cool. I don't want to spend too much time trying to look this up, but I can continue to try to look for it, and spend more time searching around, and get back to you with it if I figured it out. Like I can picture the store, I can picture their products, but but the name, I don't even know if I paid attention to the name when we walked into the store. It's terrible. It's like I just off the bat assume I'm not going to remember it, so I don't even look at it. Whatever. What I do know, the road it was on. One store I remember specifically going into, the Squashed Boutique. Squashed with a T? Squashed Boutique is, where is this on? Where is your address? It is on Chicago Avenue. Okay, so it was on Chicago Avenue. That much I have. Chicago Avenue somewhere. That might help. I don't know. Oh, yeah. I am my own worst enemy. All the time. I what I should do is take pictures when I go someplace where it's something interesting that I want to remember. The weirdest place and the most interesting place that we've gone into on our little day of exploration was that shop that was the center of order and experimentation. And their tagline is "The world is ending." I just noticed that. And it says out front, "Not a cult." Good. That's true. I would take pictures and they would just be buried on my phone. A year later, I'd be trying to clear out space and be like, why did I take a picture of that? It's, we do the best we can and we try to figure out the things that will work for us, but sometimes it just is what it is. Yeah, that weird place, that little gift shop that said, uh, gift store, gifts and something, gifts and coffee, not a cult. Um, I love that store. It was so delightfully weird. It felt like something, like you were going into something out of some kind of futuristic sci-fi movie. It looked like 70s futuristic. Like the counter of the shop was curved and carpeted, and just the aesthetic, it was very, very 70s kind of modern and so pristinely clean, and the way that the products are laid out on the table is so like perfect with a little perfectly made label. But what they had was so interesting and cool. That's where I got that great fluorescent yellow pencil and these little storage guys that I have for my desk, this and this cup. And they had beautiful pads of paper and writing instruments and weird things too. Like that's where the potato candle was and random other food candles and things. It was just delightfully odd. And I love that they have to like clarify that they're not a cult. Because it's a super weird name for such a place, and the aesthetic is so specific and unique. So yeah, I think everyone should go check that place out. It was so weird. I just love weird things anyway, so high recommend on my list. Random places to explore in Chicago. We'd also gone into this funky store that was home things, largely like antiques and stuff from around the world. And that place, I do remember the name. It was called the Golden Triangle. And like 100 times out of my price point, if there ever was a price point that matched that, it's like things were not cheap, but it was cool to walk through and you were kind of afraid to touch anything. Um, and I'm sure like because we're just weirdo. My friend and I, we're weirdo artists. We like to be colorful and comfortable, and we, I'm sure, don't look like the proper clientele for there. But we got talking to the guy that was the owner, and we actually had these like really interesting conversations about art and what makes things art and like the creative process and all this stuff. Like we got into these like insane conversations there. It was just like such a weird day with these little adventures, and that's just the best kind of thing you can hope for, I think, when you go out in a day exploring. Just those weird little moments. We met an adorable foster dog while we were walking, and whose name I don't remember, but yeah, just a weird little adventure day. And we had amazing vegan donuts because she is vegan, and they were very good. And I don't eat donuts very often, but they are a weakness. Hence why I try not to eat them very often. But yeah. In Harvard used to have where I grew up, where Mary Beth is, a wonderful bakery, the Swiss Made Bakery. Just some of the best stuff. And it's really sad that it's not them there anymore. The family no longer keeps the place. Closed a while back, and there's different people that run a bakery there, I think, now. But man, that was great. It was, walking distance from home. So random days in the summertime, maybe we'd, when I was a kid, walk down and pick up, coffee cake or some donuts for breakfast or something. Yeah, that was just really good stuff. A group from Rockford is there now. I think my mom mentioned that she'd gone in there and tried something like cream cheese coffee cake or something and was disappointed, but I think she said some of the things were all right. Yeah, I haven't really tried many of the bakeries around me here. I know there are some, and I should probably. It's just not something I think to do very often, and it's not the thing you need a lot of in your life, but every once in a while, good old fried hunk of dough with some sugar on it is pretty great. Miss the smell at night. Baking, oh my wonderful. I didn't go there. I drive to Lake Geneva to Simple. Oh, I've not been there. And Lake Geneva's not far from Harvard, so that's doable. When I lived out in the tiny, tiny town for a short while of Hebron, I would do my grocery shopping up in Lake Geneva, which is a bit of a kind of a touristy lake town. Right at the south part, kind of central, southern Wisconsin, right on the border. Yeah, I haven't been. Well, I guess sometimes when I go see my mom, we will go to that area. She's still not far from there. I used to love when I was, a teenager in my 20s. They have really nice beaches. Um, and you had to pay to get into the beaches, but if you waited until after 6 o'clock, it was technically closed because the lifeguards were no longer on duty, but you could still go and be there until dark. It officially closed at dark. So I would go, if I was going, I'd go after 6. By the time till the sun goes down when it's starting to get cold. But that was the way to do it when you were young and on a budget. there is a like French patisserie. I probably saying that wrong here in the town I live in. Um, and they do scones and macarons. Probably saying all the things wrong. Cakes and stuff, and they have like tea times. And it's not. Um, it's a little fancy. It's a little fussy, but it is good. I've only ever once had a scone there. Once took my mom there because I thought she would appreciate it. Um, it's good. That was good. I've actually had a couple business meetings have been there where you just get a coffee because it's just there's not that many coffee shops downtown, and the other one that's pretty decent is always crazy packed. They've changed the time. I think it's now 7, could be wrong. Fontana changes all the time and is gated now. Oh, nice. Yeah, well, it's been a long time since I used to go and go there. Just a few years, you know. Only a few. Um, yeah, Fontana Lake I'm not as familiar with, but yeah, you know, that's I was talking to a friend I have and she's from um wait, who was it that was telling me this? I think it was my friend that's from Germany, a friend of mine from Germany, talking about how like living on the coast, the beaches are all public. Like you can't just privately own the beach area, the land front, the lakefront or seafront or whatever, and thought it was crazy that so much of the property around lakes is so like privatized here. So yeah, that's in a lot of ways it is kind of a shame. I think Chicago has a decent stretch of some public waterfront areas. Maybe I've never really gone into Chicago to go to a beach, but I have a friend who does quite often. I guess I've sat near one a couple times, but never to just go and swim. That's Lake Michigan. And I don't know, yeah. Yeah, privatizing all that land. It's certainly, I mean, expensive property, I imagine, but it is kind of, it's a shame. North Shore is really bad with private beaches. I used to ride my bike up, and one year it was closed. Oh, jeez. Yeah, I'm not surprised that the North Shore would be bad. That's where a lot of the money is, right? And so, money talks. Get what you want, I suppose, if you have enough to pay. I know when I lived in Milwaukee, was there really beachfronts? It was mostly quite rocky along the lake. There probably were some beaches, but the almost all of that was private. Any access to be next to the water, unless you were right downtown, was all privatized. Big fancy houses that were gated off. This is still pretty messy, but I'm starting to get. I feel like the colors are far too clean for the way that I generally work, but it's a good working point. Keep messing around and see where it goes. Keep adding some layers. I saw a project that somebody online was doing with using Sharpie markers to paint a rainbow on a pair of sneakers, like white canvas sneakers. And she just did stripes of colors, just all the colors of the rainbow, front to back, and then soaked it with rubbing alcohol. And that made the colors kind of bleed, so it had a little bit of like a dip dyed or tie dyed kind of a effect. And that was pretty cool. And I've thought about doing sneakers, like trying to paint some sneakers, to the point that I actually have bought some to do this with sometime last summer. They're actually right down below me here somewhere in the bin, buried under stuff. Just like a cheap pair of, I found them at the Goodwill for like $4. A pair of white Keds, I think. Just basic canvas sneakers. And my intention was to do something fun with them, and I got the shoes and I got the mediums to work on the fabric and then to seal it, and I just never did anything with it yet. But I still have it, and I still can anytime. We'll see. I like that you keep pushing it. Yeah, I'm gonna probably make a giant mess out of it ultimately, but that's kind of what I'm going for. Yeah. Eventually I will get to it. I also had started painting a purse, and I never finished it. I think that's in the bin right in front of me by the floor here also. And I had another bag as well that I wanted to try doing that with. That's in the bin also. And I bought some like ceramic pieces with the idea of customizing them. One is like this kind of hideous ceramic teddy bear that would have been for a child, and then a little like china bowl. Well, like this, I thought would be cool to, paint something on in this like perfect white area in the middle. But for now, it's just acting as like a catch-all for my studio desk. So that may happen or it may not, but at least with all of those items, they were all Goodwill purchases. So it's not like some other things that I decide I want to try to do where, you got to spend an insane amount of money on the materials to do it. That's kind of why I love that studio in the city, that idea, that craft studio too. You could just go do it and not have to buy all the things, and they will probably relatively walk you through it and get you set up. And oh, I love that. I absolutely love the idea of it. Quite excited, and hope that we'll be able to get there and give it a try. The more I work at this, the more chaotic it will be, which is fine. Absolutely what I'm hoping to achieve. I want it to be colorful, but not too clean. And it's always dangerous to do a lot of wet on wet work. Oh, I never taped down my paper. Oh, luckily this is a heavy paper and it's not bowing too much under the pressure of all the wet media. Some mornings, I tell you what, I'm my own worst enemy. Okay, hydration and coffee. Okay. Now what? All right, there's a few areas I'm starting to be a little bit happy with. A little. Keep working at it some more. I will likely at some point also add in some marker of some sort. The giant blue painting that's behind me, I worked on that on stream a couple times, and I spent a bunch of time this last week trying to get that in good shape, fixing some of the things that were bothering me about the figure, so that I can kind of move on to the mixed media, multimedia stuff. We're getting pretty close to it. I'm really happy with the face, and I've done some adjustment on the lighting that's hitting the arms, which looks much better. Not quite there yet with the hand. Still needs a little bit of work. I just haven't taken the time to do that yet, but I'm hoping that I can get that in good shape. All that stuff, the not very exciting elements, kind of figured out and dealt with, and then we can do some of the fun, crazy stuff with it on stream, is my hope. That's the plan. So I think I should have a decent amount of time to do some just painting in the next couple of days. So hopefully that will be my opportunity to get that going. And maybe in the next stream, I can just work on that guy. And I'm going to be rethinking some of the things that I thought to do for it, for the mixed media elements, the multimedia elements. I'd originally worked through a whole, like, kind of a draft of ideas of how I was going to set it up, and now that some time has passed and I've made some changes to the piece, I'm thinking about it a little bit differently. So we'll see where it ends up. There's always a lot of that element of just kind of intuitive messing around and seeing what happens. That always creeps in there also. Trying to pay attention to what areas are wet and dry and where I want to work into them at which stage. The hardest thing I find with teaching anybody to work with watercolor is finding that point of learning when to let areas dry so that you can go back and work into it without you know, having the work you've done be ruined because it bleeds together when you don't want it to, or like when you're trying to fill in an area, like chasing the wet paint around so it doesn't dry on you when you want to still have like a big solid area. There's like, it's chasing the paint. It really is. Like, you have to keep your edges wet so you don't have the edge harden dry, and then you're stuck with that edge that you can't really get rid of. And it's hard to sometimes think about all that and plan all the different parts of your picture. But I'm still so enamored by the people who can do an illustration in just like one or two passes, a piece of artwork, a piece of watercolor art. If you can just do it in one or two passes and have it be like an absolute gorgeous piece of art. You knew exactly where to put your saturated bits, and where to keep your highlights, and it's just so cool. And I would like to kind of maybe try some working that way a little bit and practice at that. And I'm sure that that's it. It's like anything. Try it, practice it, see where it goes. But yeah, I love watching other people. I love to watch other people work, and see how they approach things, because it's amazing how differently different artists can take one medium and have such an incredibly unique approach to it from somebody else. And that just, I love that. Endlessly fascinating to me. So yeah, I love watching people work in real life. I love watching people work on videos on YouTube, seeing how they do their work. And even when it's like very different work that maybe is not something I'm terribly interested in, say like landscapes aren't really something that interests me a lot. I can absolutely appreciate a beautifully done landscape. Maybe I should try doing a couple and see, maybe that could be one of my exercise things that I work on in the studio in the mornings. The other thing that I've been trying to get into the habit of doing in the mornings, because I definitely got bad at this, certainly like during quarantine times, is especially if I don't have to get up and go somewhere first thing in the morning, like spending most of the day in sweatpants. And like sweatpants and a t-shirt, never really getting dressed and getting ready for the day. And that's something that I would really like to break the habit of doing that, as another way to like start my day on the best possible note of productivity. And so I'm trying to be better. Get up, get myself actually just cleaned up as if I were going into an office for the day. I think that could help with mindset about, all right, day started, let's get busy. I'm always able to like get done the things that I need to get done, but I just always feel like I could definitely be better. And I really should probably make it a thing to see if I can get through a painting without sticking my fingers in it. That's not likely to happen though. Let's be real. I think I inadvertently made this look like a zombie heart in this section. That's kind of funny. Didn't entirely mean to do that. I guess that color green just sort of inherently has that connotation though. All right. Making some progress. I like that it doesn't look like super clean anymore. It's always a very, very dangerous thing to do, to try to lift your color when working with watercolor. It's risky is what it is. You'd end up really screwing up your paper, and once you really screw up your paper, that's kind of a really difficult point to turn around from. And if you're willing to just go all out and don't care, about the only way you can rescue that is let your paper really dry and then use that area to do some collage over. Maybe. Depends on how you are doing your piece and what you want out of it. But yeah, messing up the paper, that's a tricky one. One girl that was working on a watercolor piece the other day had somehow got some acrylic paint, just a little wisp of it on part of her piece that's supposed to be just white. So in her mind, I think at first it's like, oh, it's ruined. And like, you know, feeling that disheartened thing. And it's like, okay, well, let's think about it. We've got a challenge here. What could we possibly do? And really the only way to, it was like a dark orange. Maybe it was some yellow ochre or something like that. We ended up talking through some possibilities, and she opted to get a little bit of paint, some white acrylic paint. So she did cover it up the spot a bit to keep the paper white, but instead of just doing that, because that kind of would stand out, I think, you know, you're going to see that as a patch. She also created this white ribbon that was some little flower, a little bunch of like lavender blooms. She used the white paint to also create ribbon that was holding together the flowers and little places elsewhere in the piece. So turned it into a very subtle mixed media piece, and it really worked, and it turned out really, really nice, really cool. So that was fun to kind of think about how we could fix it, what we could do that maybe wasn't what in the spirit of what she originally hoped the piece would be, but would still end up with a piece that she would be happy with, and try something different. My favorite thing about doing any kind of teaching is seeing the growth. When something makes sense, when something starts to click, when whoever's learning the thing starts to like feel some kind of like joy about how what they're doing is coming together and turning out, and that they can do this. I love those moments. There's probably kids in there that if they stick with what they're doing, they're gonna far outpace me in skill easily at some point. Like, there's no doubt. That's how I feel about my niece too, who is 10. She draws every day, and she is so much more advanced than I was at her age, like so far advanced. She's not even taking any particular classes or anything. She's like entirely just self-teaching and watching videos on YouTube and just loves it and has this knack that she's developed, and it's the coolest thing to watch happen. Every time I see her, it's like, "Oh, show me your sketchbook." And I'm always just floored. She really works at constantly getting better, and she really does. Like, it's her own thing that she's taken on as her own interest, just completely independently. I don't think I ever had the drive at her age to do that kind of thing, to really pursue something on my own. I don't know that it ever would have occurred to me to do that. Yeah, next week is my last week teaching the kids, and I'm trying to come up with a good, fun project to do with them for the last day. Because mostly they just kind of work on their own things that they want. It's a very self-directed, what do you want to paint, and I will help you do that, as much help as you want or need. But occasionally we do projects, and I'm trying to come up with something that would be fun. The best idea I have so far is to do, set everybody up with a different reference picture to work off of, and everybody starts painting, and then after 10 minutes or something, we switch. Now you're working on this person's art, and so forth, and then keep switching them up, so they're all working on each other's things. And I thought that would be that might be fun, but they may have already done something like that. It's a great idea for last class. Oh, thanks. Yeah, oh my gosh, the options that kids have now is I have to admit to being slightly jealous. The fact that like YouTube exists and you can learn anything you want on there is so cool, and nothing was like that when we were kids. I was in high school the first time I saw the internet, and it was not what it is now. That took quite a long time. No iPads, no cell phones, no smartphones. Very, very different time to be able to learn something like that. Oh, Procreate. I'm so terrible at Procreate. I tried to do a design on there recently. I've had it forever. I've probably had the app for, when did I get my first iPad? It's been a long time, man. Like 10 years ago or something. And I got it, but I didn't have the pencil, the Apple Pen or pencil, and I didn't. And that particular iPad came out, I think, was a generation before it could detect pressure, before you could have like it work with the pressure sensitivity. So I never really used it, and now after my last iPad really truly bit the dust, I did get a new one, and this one does work with it. So I'm trying to play around and learn Procreate, and it is surprisingly frustrating because like I have expectations of how I think things will work based on my experience with other digital programs, and every time I want to do something that seems kind of simple, I'm like, I have to like look it up. How do I do this? How do I group layers? How do I do that? So it feels cumbersome right now, and it feels like doing something in there takes me a lot longer than I would prefer for to that it takes me a lot longer than it would take for me to do the same thing in Photoshop or Illustrator or something, but I see what people can do with it and it's pretty cool. So I'm kind of I'm trying to learn, excuse me, I'm trying to learn. But yeah, that is a good point about like, you know, just having the ability to have some self-directed learning is really, really great option that if the kids have the drive to do it. I drew by myself at home. I would draw pictures or whatever, but I mean, and I'm thinking as a pretty, like as a younger kid too, not like necessarily high school or something, but yeah, it was definitely not quite, not the same level of what you're capable of learning. Man, you had to have books. Books or classes. I don't know, it never occurred to me to go to like the library and look at art books when I was a kid. I don't know why. Here's something that I never done a lot of, but I'd really like to start doing too, and this could be incorporated into an exercise on some level. It's more time consuming than like a 20-30 minute sketch session though, is master studies. Having majored in illustration, master studies was not something that we did. And I think that's a shame looking back now. But I've been thinking about doing some of that independently at this point. The closest that ever came to that was in high school sketchbook assignments. Every week we were assigned to do certain things in our sketchbook. It'd be some just objects, but then it would be like um, Edward Munch's The Scream or the Mona Lisa or something like that, and you had to find a picture of it uh, in an encyclopedia, probably art encyclopedia, and just with pencil copy it, and that was an assignment. But you know, very different thing to really like try to break down how something is created and painted now than it would have been for playing around with doing just a pencil sketch as a high schooler. One of the things that's cool that Procreate does is that it records your screen, like what you do. It records it like a screen capture of your work, which is really neat, especially for somebody who always likes to make videos. And that was one reason I wanted to work with it for fairly recently for a design. And um, I didn't get that done. At some point, I'm just like, forget this. I throw everything into Illustrator and I do the same work in a minority of the time. Miss Sanson, yeah, that was a great assignment for the students. Loved subbing for her. She was my art teacher from 6th grade through senior year in high school. So yeah, she was, the sketchbooks was always a part of things. And she did a lot of good things that benefited me going into art school. Um, I had more of a, like, we did perspective work. we would do perspective work projects with her, and that gave me a leg up when I took a perspective class in college, because that particular class, I think they'd lost the instructor, so they got somebody kind of last minute who kind of didn't really know this stuff and was trying to kind of teach himself as he was teaching the class. But because I already knew a lot of the stuff, I was I didn't struggle with it. It was fine. Um, she had us do color theory work starting in junior high. I just gessoed a page in my sketchbook to practice the Zorn palette. Ooh, I do not know what that is. I'll have to look it up. Okay, let me see. Where am I here? Some kind of blotches of this purple color around. I think there's always so much more to like learn and experiment with, and that itself makes like working with art so exciting and interesting. So much potential to do and try things. Did I see Mrs. Hanson plein air work in pastel? They were awesome. I don't think I ever saw any of her work. I wish I had. I think that would have been really neat to have seen her work. I happened to have at some point seen, I know her husband did some ceramic or pottery work. And I remember seeing that at a show at the Starline in Harvard. Yeah, I don't think I ever saw Miss Hanson's work herself, like not that I can recall. Yeah, a lot of texture from the piece that I saw. I think um, what I remember, it's been a while. And that's something that kind of persisted into art school too. I don't remember many instructors like showing us their work. I'm not really certain how important it would have been necessarily, but maybe it's just more of a curiosity thing. I don't know how much they needed to like, prove themselves to us or anything like that, but yeah, I don't know. Kind of looking back, I sort of wish I had known more of their work, more of my instructors' works, and even in college. Well, I went to a relatively small art school. I think it's much bigger now than it was when I was there, but it's had the same handful. Like my major had primarily like two main instructors that you had for a lot of the classes. There was a separate instructor that was like a figure drawing. He always did figure drawing classes, which he had throughout things, but yep, just spilling coffee on me. Um, and then one or two other instructors that you'd have for a class, but there were two that we had quite often. And I think I remember at some point later in the game, like seeing one of them brought in something that they'd done, and that was really cool. And yeah, I know that it's like the instructor shouldn't need to prove themselves to the students or anything like that. I just think it's I don't know. I guess it's just a curiosity thing for me. I just like to know what people do. They started doing teachers' art shows at the high school. That was much later. Oh, that is pretty neat. Yeah, I don't know. I imagine they probably replaced Miss Hanson with more than one instructor. She did like all the art classes when I was in school. I think I recall even like running out of art classes to take my senior year, because if I had electives, it was going to be an art class. I just would fill it in with that. So I think my senior year I did one independent study. She let me do that, and then I ended up taking like German 1 to fill in another gap, and so I was in there with all the freshmen learning German. They did, I imagine. Well, gosh, the fact that she had done the junior high classes and the high school classes and all of them. I had a friend do like a printing class. I think they did some screen printing for maybe a semester. And I took something else at that time, and I don't think they offered that class again, but that was one that was cool that I was sort of interested in. I did take a printing class in college my freshman year as an elective, and I really loved it and enjoyed it, but didn't really get back to doing much with it. As an adult, I have on occasion done some linoleum cuts for printing. Trying to think. Should be nearby me somewhere. I think they're in a cabinet back here. No, I don't know. They're around somewhere. Some small ones. I really like the idea of them, and I haven't entirely figured out how to incorporate that into a lot of my work. I did have, gosh, I'm gonna break things doing this. Piece of art hanging on the wall right in front of me. This guy, like the "We Are Okay," wording, that is a linoleum print, which I actually did twice because it'd been so long since I'd done it that I totally forgot that you had to have a mirror image of your text, and my text was backwards, so I had to do it a second time. Oh. Always wondered why the storage room and the art room had stairs in it. Oh, the art room used to be the pool. Yeah. That's cool. Love the oh, thank you. One of the first pieces I did as like a after I'd started doing that inspiration project and experimenting with mixing medias, that was like the first personal project I did with that approach. Yeah, I think I knew that because both my parents had taught at the high school in Harvard that I went to before I was born. And I talked about that there was this basement area, half of it was the chorus room and half of it was the art room. I don't know if it's still that way now, but that had originally been a swimming pool that they filled in rather than maintain, I guess. Or something along those lines, which is kind of funny. Okay, I'm getting to a place on this where I'm actually almost happy with it, shockingly. This space is too open. I want something else in here. Not sure what that'll be just yet. I have some ideas that are percolating that maybe I cut something out of it. Interesting. Let's see. I've done, outside of the initial washes, I've done the bulk of this with my number 6 Kolinsky brush. I love this brush, and I feel like I can use it for almost anything outside of large washes. This is I think the first brush I actually, was willing to spend a few bucks on when I got it. Yeah, it's really great. It's so versatile. You can control how much water and paint it holds very easily. Loving this heart. My spelling is bad today, actually, the keyboard skills. I have problems with both of those things. I am both a terrible speller and a not great typer, especially on like a phone or, a keyboard like that. Like my thumbs suddenly grow twice as big and I never hit the keys I mean to hit. All right, let me move this guy back away from the iPad and the mic so I don't ruin anything inadvertently. I spill things all the time. And yesterday when I was painting in here, like it was like that situation where it's like, oh, I'm just about done. Oh wait, let me like pop in and I'm gonna do a few more things. And I set my coffee down, of course, right almost next to my paint water, and I kept doing it, and I still didn't move my coffee, like almost putting my brush in there. And I'll be honest with you, if I did that with my watercolor brush, I'd probably still drink the coffee. I probably shouldn't, but I probably would. However, that was acrylic paint, and I was definitely not going to do that. So, at least I know where to draw some lines for myself. Yeah, I never learned how to, I'm a terrible speller, and I think it goes back to, like, grade school. We were encouraged to write and not worry necessarily about the spelling, just be writing, and so I took that to heart, and I never really got great at spelling. And also I'm terrible at memorizations. And actually over the years, just being a working adult, autocorrect has actually helped me become a better speller, as crazy as that might sound. But being corrected with autocorrect has helped me to get better at what I'm doing. But I also, part of my problem is careless mistakes. Like going too fast, skipping things. That's probably the bigger issue that I have. I'm bad at proofreading because of that too. I won't see the thing. I'll read the same section over and over and over again, and I'll never see the misspelling. My brain just skips over it. I tend to miss misspellings that other people do because of that. It's like my brain just will, as long as I can figure out what it is, I'll just automatically correct in my head. And not even notice. Usually. The things I always do notice is the misuse of like there, and there. For whatever reason, that's one of the few things that sticks with me, and I know, and I will notice when that's messed up. Or two and two, like T-O or T-O-O. So the random things that I know that have sunk in deeply with me, I'm very critical of. When I have no right to be critical of anything anyone else does. Yeah, I'm definitely considering that I might ultimately, because I'm going to actually cut the shape of the heart out in general to use it. That's the intention. Possibly cutting something out of this space. Maybe. At the moment, unsure of if that will actually be the thing I do, but that is an option. One of the first things that, of course, popped into my head for some reason. I've been thinking a lot about the art by the artist Suzanne Jackson, who inspired me a lot when I saw her work in Savannah a few years back. She created these gorgeous, like, hangings, and in the gallery they would just be hung so that you could walk amongst them. It was a really stunning space. You go behind it, in front of them, and it was some of it was like using like a cheesecloth type of a fabric or something like that, and applying, like, if you applied acrylic paint to it and let that dry on a surface that was like maybe a wax paper, and then you could pull it off and it becomes into that fabric, the weaving of the cheesecloth. It was things like that, and found objects and maybe some weaving and such, and just these gorgeous and colorful hangings. And it was her work that really encouraged me to kind of push my boundaries and try different things, incorporating some dimensional elements in some of my stuff. And I kind of still want to push further, even further, with what I've done to play with that. I think that I often think about her work and how amazing that was, and have it in mind as like inspiration for pushing myself. And the other artist that I think that has influenced or inspired me a lot, influence is probably a correct word too, is Emma Amos, who is kind of the same era initially. Very active in like the 60s and 70s, female artists. And just the way that she would do unexpected things on the canvas. Like repeating use of printed elements, and I'm not sure if it was like transfer print that she was using or what, but very graphic painted elements, some more figurative things combined with repeated elements and very graphic things. Yeah, I saw her work a little bit after I'd kind of started doing the, like, a figurative element in watercolor or paint, and then other graphical elements too, and it just even made me think to push even more also. There's so many amazing people that have done and are doing so many amazing things. I know we've lost Emma Amos some years ago. Suzanne Jackson, I believe, is still works in Savannah. Just such cool things. And you just never know what you're going to be inspired by, and sometimes it's entirely unexpected. Both of their shows that I went into, I didn't plan to go to. I just happened to be at an art museum on the days that their work was there, and then I was like, oh my gosh, where has this been? So it's pretty interesting. You just don't ever know what's going to influence you or inspire you, and sometimes it's not even visual art. So it pays to be a little bit open to seeing what the world has to offer. So I don't do a lot of traveling, but if I'm in a new city, I definitely like to check out an art museum. And let's see, though I saw Susan Jackson's work in Savannah, and I saw Emma Amos's work in Philadelphia. That's the art museum where Rocky ran up the stairs. It's famous for that. Um, yeah, the most recent other place I've been to last summer was museum in Indianapolis. And there was definitely some interesting things there. They had a Faith Ringwald piece, and I love her work. They had I'm not even going to remember what this is, but there was a group of pieces that they had that were from a Chicago-based movement. Again, I'm going to forget what it was called, but it was oh man, I really frustrate myself. I think it was happening like 80s and 90s, primarily very colorful kind of pop art-ish with a little surrealist elements. Oh man. My brain frustrates me a lot. My recall is terrible. I don't remember things, but I remember that it was amazing and it impacted me. It was very cool. Oh, my cat just got shut in the studio with me. Hi, Watson. And I forget. Oh, they had this small exhibit that was, and again, I'm not going to remember the name. I know I took pictures of the artist's name, but he was a clothing designer that was very influential in like the late 70s and 80s like punk movements. So they had like examples of his stuff that Harry who? I think I've lost the context of what we're talking about there. I think I can find out what that is. I'm gonna look to the left here for a second and see. There is Ed Pesky. Yes, Ed Pesky is one of them. Yes, that was the name I was just gonna try to look up. Yeah, that art movement. They called it something like as a specific art movement, and I'd never heard it before. See if I can find it real quick. What they called it. Here they're just, when I just do a quick search, they're just talking about it as, oh, imagine it, Imagist, is that it? Was that it? Because I just did a quick Google search and all I got was like pop art and colorful expressionist, and I know that wasn't it. Imagist might be it. That sounds right. Yes, Chicago Imagist. There we go. Yes. Thank you. Ah, that's it. Oh gosh. Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. I never heard that. Like, I was familiar with Ed Pesky's work and some of the other artists there I'd seen before, but I didn't realize that that was actually like a specific little movement, and that was really neat to learn about. Took me going to Indiana to do it randomly. And yeah, that punk clothing exhibit was really fun. Like, I've never been into an art museum and been into a room there where they were blasting the Sex Pistols music. So that was pretty fun. And they had like the dress that Blondie wears in the music video, that song she's famous for, Heart of Glass. Is that the name of the song? I don't know, but that dress was there. It was just really interesting. And then he got into some futurist kind of weird stuff into the like early 90s. Colorful. Yeah, that was fun. I don't know that like created an influence for me in any way. Like, I wasn't as moved by any particular thing at that museum, but it was fun to see those exhibits, certainly. Yeah. Harry Who is the 60s. I think Ed was in another movement. Yeah, that could be. I'm I'm definitely the wrong person to try to remember these things. Um, yeah, I enjoyed walking through that museum, even though nothing was like something I'm going to take home and apply necessarily to what I'm doing or like influence me in that way, but you just never know what you're going to find. And honestly, for saying that I like to go to other cities and check out the museums, art museums, when's the last time that I went into the Chicago Art Institute? I did go into the Chicago Museum of Modern Art to see the Nick Cave exhibit, which was super cool. And that was a year ago, last summer, I think. But yeah, I really need to go back to the Chicago Art Museum. Yes, Mr. Watson, what's up? Hi, Bubby. Wanna come say hi? He's just gonna sit over by the door and be annoyed. It is his lunchtime now, so that's probably why. 12 o'clock. And yeah, on that note, we have been at this for 2 hours, and I'm probably pretty much done with the watercolor elements of this painting. I will have to decide if I want to continue any further with it. But yeah, that might be in a pretty good spot. I'll probably walk away and look at it again. On Thursday, no, today is Thursday. On Monday evening, I'll probably be back to my big painting. Oh my goodness, do you hear him? I know, I'm sorry. Just a minute. Just a minute. Yes, I think I'll probably go back to working on the big painting on Monday. We're going to go into completely different stuff on that. And just back to the normal schedule. Yeah, he's hungry and bored. All right, so thank you so much for joining me and for watching and hanging out while I blather and work on silly art. And I will hopefully see you on Monday. Have a great end of the week and weekend. Hope the weather's great, and hope for lots of wonderful creative energy in your direction. Bye.